Good morning, everybody. Once again, this is the 1031 paper roundtable. How I usually start out the little discussion is I ask people, of course, what are this? What's this? What are these things?
It's a tool.
Huh? It's a tool, right?
It's a note.
It's a note. What these are is these are promissory notes from someone that anyone will take a promissory note from, Uncle Sam, right? Any one of us here at the table will take a promissory note from Uncle Sam. We won't think anything of it. We call it money, okay? Or cash. And so because of Mr. Starker back in the 80s, we have a right through IRS Code, Section 1031, to defer our gains. Anything you can defer with cash through the process, you can do the same with notes, okay, promissory notes, because cash is notes, okay? The Federal Reserve and all this, why is this stuff worth anything, that piece of paper? The actual value of that piece of paper is a fraction of a mil of a penny, right? It's not, it's a piece of paper with a little ink on it. It costs some money to make the engraving, but it's really worthless. But we all agree it's not. And that's why we trade the stuff around, okay? Promissory notes guaranteed by somebody other than Uncle Sam are kind of subjective, and we want to look at them all and decide whether they're good or not. That's its own subject as far as that Federal Reserve, all that stuff. But what I've discovered, and I'm not, if they say I invented this, no, this is nothing, there's nothing new under the sun. People have been doing this for 50 years. You get a 1030, well, not 50 years, since Starker. Before you had to do it simultaneous, and we can do the same thing simultaneous. I'll tell you how we can do it as simultaneous. But anyhow, so we have the because the IRS code, we have the right to defer the taxes. We can now take our notes through the same process that we do to defer our gains. Okay, so that's just sort of an intro to what we're doing. The ability to take cash, give it to a qualified intermediary, and then have the qualified intermediary purchase the replacement property and give it to you. That's what Starker came up with and made work, and that's what we're talking about with this process, okay? Yeah, and so what this does is, as far as what I'd like you to focus most on is what effect should this have on the marketplace, okay? There are a lot of properties out there we know that will sell for a certain price for cash, but might sell a little bit more if you have a carry, right? Because there are buyers out there who will pay a little bit more if you bring the financing. We all have a fiduciary duty to our clients to give them the best we can. If we suggest they take cash rather than carry the paper at a higher amount, we're probably not doing them a favor, okay? They aren't getting everything that they could because they're insisting going to cash. Now when you go buy on the other end, yeah, you're a cash buyer. You can probably get some discounts and stuff. So everybody, investor, needs to decide what's best for them, which way to do it. But what I want to say for all anybody with any property held for investment listed, if your seller is going to do a 1031, okay, and that's what's going to happen, you need to now let them know that they can also do a seller carry, okay? And so we can go. Most properties have somebody who will give you $10,000 down or $100,000 down or whatever if you carry the financing, okay? So that's kind of what we're talking about doing. And then they're selling something and they want to replace it with something else, and so that's all part of the process. So how does this really happen? Okay, I'll just give a hypothetical example, and then we can go through some real ones if you want to know more examples. So the easiest numbers are probably say, hey, you've got a $1 million office building. Okay, office buildings are good classic ones because office markets are a lot of times soft if they're not filled up. So you got $1 million office building. Who knows what the cap rate, all that? Don't care. You want it, you say at $1 million. I'll take it if they provide the financing. I don't have to go through the whole rigmarole with the bank, okay? So you got a financial planner shows up. He's got $200,000 of client money, or an individual comes with $200,000 of his own money, okay? Wants to come put it down on that $1 million property. Hallelujah, okay? We'll create an $800,000 note. But my seller doesn't want that $800,000 note. He loves the $200,000 cash. He doesn't want the $800,000 note. He doesn't want the cash either. He wants another property over here. So we set up and we say, okay, Mr. Buyer, we'll go ahead and get under contract with you. We'd like to take your money down. The contract's going to be subject to us finding something in lieu of your cash and note. Okay, so we're going to have an open-ended period of time to go identify what we want to and move on. So as far as underwriting, which is a lot of people's concern about this paper underwriting, well, the guy's got $200,000 down, right? He's qualified. We're done. Underwriting's over. Okay, we know what the property is. We've already owned it before. He's got $200,000 down. As long as he doesn't have the bad actor stuff, you know, he doesn't have $1 million of tax liens, you know, that kind of stuff. You know, the normal person, he's qualified. Okay, so we're ready to close. We love it. Now we got to go find the replacement property. Okay, that's where the challenge comes and why I'm trying to educate more people to do this. The paper issue is now we're going to the marketplace. We have some cash and we have some paper. We're assuming it's good paper, has a decent market rate, you know, all that kind of stuff. So, but we go to the marketplace and you go on your national websites and you go to your your local commercial brokers and you tell them, I got this note I want to put down. It's difficult because people don't understand what we're doing. Okay, so generally you want to go to National Council of Exchange or Society of Exchange Counselors, local exchange groups, places where people will understand these kind of things to find the brokers. The public understands this a lot better than the brokers do. As soon as you approach a broker with a note, one of these kind of deals, or an exchange, like we always do when we do exchanges, their first thought is, how am I going to get paid? And that's when the whole process stops, because greed kills deals like nothing else, and it's usually broker greed on these kind of things that is a problem. And when we explain it to you guys as far as the broker side of it, the guy is crazy to not want to do this deal, because when they take paper in selling their property, if their client doesn't want the paper, they're going to do the same process. That broker with the listing is going to have a buyer's agency relationship now, because he's going to go be able to broker a second deal. These people who list properties and don't ask the people what they're going to do with the cash and don't anticipate the next deal, and I'm sorry, I'll try to speak up a little louder, don't anticipate the next deal, I don't understand why they would do that and how they stay in business, because as soon as that listing is sold, they got to go look for another client. They got a client. He's got $1 million. He's ready to go buy something, okay? That's the key here to that part of it. But so anyhow, so imagine that we get we can go identify the property that we want. We go find a $1.5 million property that fits everything that your client wants. He's got $200,000 cash. He's got an $800,000 note. Now the $200,000 is going to be reduced a little by the fees of the transaction and all. Let's say he takes $150,000 cash and $800 note to the $1.5 million property. He can get a bank loan for the rest of it. You know, it ought to work just fine for the next client. Now, again, educating the next piece is important because they can move it forward. So anyone who takes the paper can take the paper, or they can do an in lieu clause in their contract, just like we did, and say, no, we're not going to take the paper. We love the deal. We want you to be a taker, but we're going to only take the paper if we can find something we want with the paper, okay? So that takes part of the timing is a big factor. And in Colorado, we can write up the notes in deeds of trust. The name on that note is going to be the qualified intermediary, okay? You do not want to, you do not want to have the, you know, if your name's on that note, you're done. You took it, okay? So the name needs to be to the qualified intermediary who's holding it on your behalf, and then we'll move to the next piece. Now, it's interesting as you think about the logistics, okay? These notes have payments. They're going to sit with a qualified intermediary for 45 to 180 days. Payments on a note are not a 1031 eligible thing. And of course I have to disclose, I am no tax expert. Don't take tax advice from me. I'm just a real estate broker. But my understanding is that as those payments come in, they can go and be held by the qualified intermediary. They're going to be subject to taxation, but then that can be moved. That can be used to pay those crap fees that we can't pay with our 1031 money, okay? It will also mean that if this note sat there for a year or two, and of course it can, moving between different parties. Say just we're there for 150 days. We've got the note there. There's going to be some cash sitting in there that's not 1031 cash that can come out and actually go to your client's pocket, and they can pay taxes on it and get a little bit of gravy to help pay some of the fees and things that they have to go through, through this whole process. This note then can go to the next person, the next person, the next person, and heck, it could go for 30 years till it's cashed out. Or whoever ends up taking it has an installment sale. And again, not a tax expert, the installment sale though is as you receive the payments. Another idea I've thought of and has not been tested by IRS or anything else is you're taking a note. Whoever has the final note can take an installment sale, or they can go have someone appraise that note. Because guess what? You go appraise that note, it ain't worth $800,000, okay? As far as just selling it on the open market. So there's options for the person ultimately taking the paper at the end. But but that's just another part of it. But so the whole idea is anyone who's going to do a 1031 can carry paper, and you put it through the process. Now, how do you make it work for the buyer? Because you got a buyer who now they want to close, okay? And they got a deal, they want to buy this office building, and this seller says we love it, and they want our money and all, but they say, shit, I'm not going to close till I don't know when, okay? It may take a year. Who knows how long it'll take? So what we've done is just set up the terms on the front end of it so that it's the same for the buyer. Excuse me, we set up the terms on everything so that the buyer has the same kind of terms that they would have if they bought it in a reasonable period of time. You say maybe in 90 days, if we're not closed, then we will A, B, C, and D to make it work, okay? So that's why I'll give you a concrete example, which is one I use over and over again, and Chuck's, I think, the only one here who's heard this twice or 3 times probably. A number of years ago, it's probably 4 or 5 years now, I'm not sure how many, we had and this is Dave, your partner Andrea's deal, one of her deals. So we had a couple office buildings. We did the same thing on the first one, which gave us a property we'll discuss in the rest of it. But the second office building was a 10,000 square foot office building in Colorado Springs that we had listed for $700,000. At that time, believe it or not, in Colorado Springs, the appraisers would have a hard time appraising that building for $700,000. Okay, plenty of people willing to pay for it, but hell, 3 buildings down, the bank sold one for $300,000. The banks continued to mess up the market even after the crisis by the way they didn't understand disposition of assets. Okay, appraisers also had the same problem. Appraisers look backwards. They don't see what if a buyer wants to buy a building, what's he going to have to pay for it? That's really what an appraisal should be, right? The right amount of time, educated buyer in the market, all those rules. They don't use those rules. They use what somebody else paid for within the last 6 months to a year. Didn't work for this office building. We know this guy, he was a financial planner. He says, I'm not going to be able to go get that loan and the appraisal on that office building, and you're not going to sell it for less, so it's a potential impasse. We'd done another deal with this guy before, so he knew the process. He had $180,000 in cash. Like I said, he's qualified. I mean, we already knew him from another deal, but if any of you walk up on the street and you got $180,000 cash, you're qualified, okay? Subject to you're not a criminal, that kind of stuff. So what we did was we proposed a transaction. He's going to put $180,000 down. We're going to carry $450,000 at 6% interest only for 4 years, and every year he's going to pay an annual balloon of $50,000 of principal. Okay, first position, office building, Colorado Springs, 10,000 square feet, full with tenants. I don't think there's anyone in this room wouldn't take that paper, right? I mean, that's good paper. So we take this out to the marketplace. Well, now at a time when all these people, my client likes mini storage and multifamily because she came in through entry-level real estate stuff, and that's really what the big passion is out there. There are masses of people looking for those kind of assets, all right? Very difficult to get somebody to spend the time to work hard for their client to understand anything other than cash. They're just going to sell for the most cash they can get. So it was a little difficult taking it to the marketplace to bring the paper. So what I would do, just for the practicality of everybody in the room, so I created an exchange package on the software that we have, the website for NCE, created a $450,000 first note from my best client. I put on as the title of it. So here we go. $450,000 note, we're going to go shop with it. Went shopping around, had trouble, like I said, with the multifamily role, but found a guy, Dennis Kroll, Society of Exchange Counselor member, and John Tyler was representing. He's also an SEC guy and a member of this group. He had an RV park in Oak Grove, Missouri, KOA campground in Kansas City, basically. Okay. My client likes little checks, bunches of little checks, and these kind of things. Very good with spreadsheets and that kind of stuff. A little out of her, bailiwick, because it's an RV park. They're a little unusual. So she had to go to KOA University, okay, to get the proper education and all the rest. She had to get approved by the lender that works for just KOA, okay? She had to go all the, and oh, by the way, we then had to make sure the thing was worth what they're asking, okay? So it was a $3 million RV park, okay? So it took us through that whole process from the beginning to the end. It took us 18 months, okay? So we got a financial planner with $180,000 of people's money that's supposed to be invested with a return, and we got 18 months that we're delaying this guy getting his money in the deal. So what we did was, right in about 30 or 60 days in, we said, okay, since we don't have this closed right away, we're going to go ahead and do a master lease with you at the same exact terms as if you had put the $180,000 down, okay? So my client's giving him a good deal to buy this time, okay? But darn it, you better have that $180,000 sitting on the side when we need it. If you need to, if you want to buy 3-month CDs with it or whatever, that's your own business. But that $180,000 better be there. Certified financial planner, the money was there. He goes to jail if the money's not there. So we're all pretty safe on that end. So 18 months later, we closed the deal with the office building, and then a week later, we closed on the KOA campground. So we didn't have to go through that 45-day identification period. If you close within the first 45 days, you have identified. That's my understanding of the rules. So and again, all these are just my understanding, not an IRS guy. So what did all those numbers look like? So she's buying a $3 million campground, all right? She's got $450,000 in notes and, $150,000 in cash or something, all right? Well, I told you we'd done another deal on the other office building, and in fact, one of the properties is here in the book. My 1012 is 9 units in Euclid, Ohio. She did a transaction prior where we did an exchange where she ended up with that property free and clear. We needed to balance equities on part of this. We created a $160,000 first note, which you can find as the debt in the book, on the Euclid, Ohio property, and took that along with her 450 paper, her 150 cash, took that 160 note, and put all of that in, along with $2.1 million of proceeds from a new loan, and she closed on the KOA campground. Okay? Everybody wins. Guy's got an office building with seller carry financing at the terms he wanted, works perfect for his financial planner's deal. And oh, by the way, he's got places he can put that $50,000 principal each time, right? So he can take $50,000 in from new people, really beneficial for everybody each step of the way. So
he said that, I think you said yesterday that most people do this because out of necessity, but you do this out of standard practice.
yeah, by design, yeah.
By design. So you take a free and clear property and automatically go out and shop it as owner financing situation.
Oh, well, no, I have a duty to market it every way I can.
Yeah, no, but I mean,
Yeah.
but that's one of the avenues that
Absolutely.
you
And so if I find somebody, so if Dave comes up and says, God, all I got's a pickup truck, but I really like that property, and I know I can pay for it because it's making enough money, and by the way, I make enough money, I could pay for it, but I just don't have a big down payment. Dave, we'd love to get under contract with you. You'll take your pickup truck down, and we'll create paper, and we'll move forward. Now, we may not be able to close because of the paper side. My idea, and I have not done this, but I've done it on other transactions. What you do is you create what I say great firsts and shitty seconds. Okay, so for Dave, we'd create an 80-20 kind of situation, create a really good 80% note that everyone in the world wants, and a 20% note that most people don't want. Okay, and they're going to have to go buy something not so nice with that one maybe, or it's a throw-in in the deal. But anyhow, but that's a way that you can do that. So we're going to market it that way. Now, if someone comes along with a bunch of cash, sure, we're going to look at it, the discounted cash versus what we can do and all that. So we do still need to market it each way, but yeah, we do it by design.
Just another avenue to market.
Right. And so what's happened in the past a lot of times is like Jim Keller sitting at the first thing, he's like, we've been doing that for 40 years. I said, well, yeah, when you have an exchange and you need a little seller carry in it to make it work, you pass that through the intermediary, and people have been doing this for a long time. Okay, like I said, it's nothing new. What I want to do is make this a mainstream kind of thing. Okay, all of these people with these listings that are 1031s. So let's go back to the broker. Why are the brokers the problem here? Okay, why is it that, I mean, we're lazy, we don't want to work that hard. I mean, we all know that.
Well, I'm not going to get paid for 18 months.
You're not going to get paid for 18 months. Right, you're not going to get paid for 18 months, yeah. But you know what you're going to get paid? So I could have taken $15,000 or $18,000, whatever my net commission was. I could have taken that on the first leg, right? I got $90,000, okay, because I worked 18 months longer, okay? So
Let's say I'm the buyer, I'm the broker for your buyer of the office building.
right.
So when does he get paid?
He got paid 18 months later. Yeah.
He didn't get any.
No, if he would have wanted to get paid earlier, I could have worked something out with him. But yeah, he
I'm
didn't.
just saying that's an objection.
But the buyer's got he's got a property that he got to sell or carry on.
Really.
Right.
He's also got a property that's going to have a problem getting.
Yeah, exactly. He got a deal done. Well, the funny thing is, by the time 18 months later, the way the appraisers work, hell, the thing's worth more than that. You know, there's no problem. And so 4 years later, it came time to refinance. Not a problem at all. He's got, he's down to 250 debt. Everything worked out great for the guy. So that's and it's funny. A couple years later, the guy calls me up. Who do I pay? Right? Because he sends them, they send the check back, say, that ain't we don't own that note anymore. So Dennis Kroll took that note from our qualified intermediary, and it was handed to his qualified intermediary, okay? His qualified intermediary then took it down to Wilcox, Arizona, where he was going to do the same thing again. Now he's got an RV park on the market again in Wilcox, Arizona. That owner took the seller carry paper, but he didn't take it. It was given to his qualified intermediary. I don't know what the heck he bought, okay? But it's been paid off now, okay? So it's all of that's done. But so what we want to do is create a marketplace at 1031paper.com, and all I've done is reserve the domain name, nothing more than that. But I think most of us, if we go to a marketplace with our new listing and see there's paper, and will they take our property? So I'm talking about a marketplace: paper seeking property, property seeking paper. Now, people, well, what if I want to buy this paper? Well, we don't want to have a website selling paper because that's a security, and we don't want any involvement with that. Qualified intermediaries absolutely can sell those notes for paper, okay? So we don't want to just work with one qualified intermediary. We want to work with all of them and have them, if somebody comes up and says, no, I want to buy that paper for cash out of the transaction, then we let the principals decide, because that 18 months goes away if we discount that note a little bit, right? And so, but again, it's the same as discounting it for cash, right? We go tell our client, you can get $1 million this way, or you can get $900,000 in money. Which one do you want? And it's all about the benefits. Some clients, depending on their taxation, those two are different, right? And what are the benefits? Where's their basis? All these normal things that we think about all become part of the factor. So don't stop doing what you're normally doing. Don't none of the rules of what you know have changed, okay? Like I said, these things in my pocket here, these are promissory notes, okay? We're talking about the same thing we'd be doing with these, except, oh, by the way, it bears interest, okay? Alan Friedman, who's no longer with us, taught me real well. He said, listen, cash is a depreciating asset. Those things are worth less tomorrow than they are today. Alan Friedman would not take cash under any circumstances, okay? He's kind of a wise guy. He had more money than all of us put together by the time he died at 96. I think he's probably pretty wise as far as his advice there with it. And so, that's sort of, depends on the wealth of the client, of course. If they need the money to eat, absolutely. You can't take a promissory note to the grocery store, except these green ones, right? But if you're a high net worth individual or entity, the people who are our clients in the exchange marketplace, they should not want cash, okay? That's a 4-letter word that starts with C, and we don't use that in mixed company. That's inappropriate. So cash is a bad thing, except when you go take it to the bar, okay? The note that bears interest higher than the bank will give you is there, okay? Getting 6% easy. Right, we got 8 or 10, okay, depending on the terms of what you're doing. You go show me an investment you can get that with that level of safety, and we'll invest in that, because these are first mortgages on American real estate that has a down payment and that, that's moved around. So as you see, there's a lot of opportunities for all of us doing this, okay? If you're on the entry level of your career, you can buy anything, right? Because they'll sell or carry finance it, okay? If you can make the payments with what's there. And if you can't, it's probably, if there aren't enough benefits in the property, the price is wrong, okay? But, so like I'm using Dave's pickup truck example. Now, Dave has a few more assets than a pickup truck, so he doesn't really need that. But the fact is, it'll work, okay? And it has nothing to do with the pickup truck, okay? It's got to do with the intent, and the brokers have to work hard. We have to work a lot harder on this, but guess what? Would you rather have 90,000 or 15,000, okay? And are you gonna be in business 18 months from now? Because if you're not gonna be in business 18 months from now, take the 15 grand, right? Because that's the answer. But, so the other thing for the client, okay? John Tyler with Dennis Kroll, and I don't know who did the next transaction, I'm assuming it was, but the seller now, guess what he's got? He's got paper. You think any broker, part of, I guess, a little controversy of it, and people, bankers aren't a big fan. A banker, as we all know, is a man who gives you an umbrella when the sun is shining and takes it away when it rains, okay? We normally wouldn't do business with those kind of people, but we all sort of have to, because they're the bankers, right? We don't need them anymore, okay? With this process, other than, the $2.1 million for the guy, that portion was cash. We didn't, he could have carried that and moved it through the same portion. That was great because of the rate. We use banks because they're willing to lend money cheaper. That's the reason to use them. But bottom line is, if we can get a certain percentage of transactions to go this way, even at 1%, we're going to start digging into what they're doing, and that's when we then meet the big things, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I would like to see where a large percentage of commercial transactions happen this way, and it becomes a standard procedure, in which case the government will come in and say, here's what your note looks like, here's what your deed of trust looks like, all of these things, because it will become more of a mainstream thing. Again, though, we're not talking about any consumers, no owner occupants. Okay, this is all property held for investment. If it's not property held for investment, it's not eligible for 1031. It doesn't work. Now, this works for the guy, the contractor who wants the bigger shop. Okay, it does work for those kind of things. So, anyway, I can tell there are a couple of questions. Do you have some questions?
No, I'm just, I love what it's doing.
Okay, well, thank you. Yeah.
You do the same thing that the bank does. You just create a note. That's all the bank does, create a note and a deed of trust.
Right, and instead of selling it on the secondary market before I close, we go ahead and take some, the appropriate risk and move forward with it. But again,
Secret process, we just don't think that way.
right, it's exactly. So everything you guys already know, all of these parts, right? I didn't tell you anything that you don't already know how to do. It's just a matter of doing it with a purpose, okay? And then the difficulty is finding people to take that paper. But as you've seen in this room more, oh my goodness, what do all the smart guys want? What's Ted Blank want? He wants paper. If Ted Blank wants it, you might want it too, okay? Yeah, so the intermediary, so it was wonderful the first time I did this talk, Bill Exeter, I literally got the question, I haven't fortunately had it for a while, but people would ask me, is this legal? What the hell are you saying to me? You know, what kind of question is that? You know, I mean, so Bill Exeter sat at the end of the round table. The first time we do it, put 3 tables together, like 45 of us, and Bill at the end, oh, they asked that question, they turned to him, Bill, nods his head, yeah, it's okay. So Bill understands that I have had qualified intermediaries teaching classes in Colorado. In fact, Tracy Wilson with IPX specifically. I go over this sitting next to the guy, that buyer's agent, who I did 2 of these deals with. He doesn't know what we did either, okay? He doesn't know. He did it twice, okay? I'm talking to these people. Mr. Wilson, you know, as good as he is at what he does, no, didn't understand this process at all. Sent a bin log email about it, never got a response, okay? Most QIs haven't thought this through. Bill Exeter is very good, and really good qualified intermediaries who thought through this process will say, of course you can, and oh, by the way, we've done it 10, 15, 100 times. Because remember that McDonald's deal when the guy came up a little short? Oh yeah. That kind of thing. That's how it usually happens, is a little piece of a bigger deal where you can't figure out how to deal with that other piece of equity, and we don't want to get a taxable event. Now, again, I'm not a tax expert. There are options. Talk to your CPA. You can take partials in your 1031 exchange, decide how that paper compares to what you're getting in the property you're getting, right? And Bill's saying, yeah, you're thinking that right along. Is that, yeah, you split up the benefits to what you want out of what you're getting, because you're still in the driver's seat. You got that in lieu clause in your contract, so that's an important thing. Subject to finding something else in lieu of what you have offered, okay? Very important to put in there. Each state, they say you should have a lawyer do it, whatever. You know, the bottom line is you want to say, I have the right to not do this deal if I can't find something. And we all do that in exchanges, right? If you got a third leg exchange, multi-leg exchange, you say, I'd love to take that piece of dirt, but I ain't going to take it. If I can find somebody else take that piece of dirt, we got ourselves a deal. Same with the note. And so what I'd like to see is get to the point where we have a national database. Any of us can get up in the morning and go and pick from 1,000 different notes, or 1,000 properties who say they'll take the notes. And we'll have another marketplace, just like we have in these exchange marketplaces. This is a different set of inventory. Most of the commercial brokers don't deal with it. The big houses aren't going to understand this. They're not going to be interested in this. Okay, they also don't co-op. So, we don't, some of you might need them, some of you might work for those big companies, but this is a way for us at every level to play with it. So you can do this with a duplex with a pickup truck down up into a fourplex. You can do this with a shopping center into, hundreds of thousands of acres of timberland that you got from Mr. Starker. Okay, so this all, I think it's the most powerful tool in exchanging that I've used. Yeah, it is. It's absolutely. Yeah, there's nothing wrong. Like I said, we've checked each step of the way. The reason that these laws are like they are is because it's right. We're protecting the public. Okay, these investors. This is the best way a lot of times to go. Not always the best way to go. So yes, you can take the $900,000 cash, and you may be able to buy a better property than you can with the $800,000 paper and the $200 cash. Okay, that's. Who knows, okay? But it's another tool. And again, the key is on the brokerage side of it is co-oping with other brokers, getting it, cooperating instead of competing. And oh, by the way, you get a client for life, okay? The client with that office building, you think I could fire her? I couldn't fire her with a gun, right? I mean, the relationship. We have a very good relationship. I made her tons of money, and we have a, who else is going to do this kind of stuff? She knows more about real estate and transactions than most brokers do now because of going through these. She's done it. She's gone through these complicated transactions. So the client is responsible for the due diligence. I put the thing together. She gets the spreadsheet out and makes sure that damn RV park makes enough money to pay the bills. Okay, that's not the broker's job. That's the client's job. I have a client who does her job. You absolutely have to have a good client who does their work, or nothing ever works, but it's the same as if they're buying it with cash. That's how do you make a small fortune, right? Start with a big one and whittle it on down. Okay, so it's up to them to be smart and make sure the transaction work. Our job is to let them know the possibilities. And when I went to a marketing session, was I looking for an RV park? No. Am I now? Yeah. Because I know she knows how to run RV parks now. So now I have a client who can do mini storage, apartments, or RV parks. And you all know I'll take about anything and do about any kind of deal that makes sense. So
We know you don't like cash. So.
yeah, I know. Yeah. No, I what I like cash for? I like to spend it. Yeah, that's about all cash is good for, is spending. And so it's a consumer good, just like your automobile is. It's, you take cash knowing it's going to go away. You buy that car knowing it's going to go away. Okay, it's a consumer good, and cash is, real estate's not. There's two kinds of property, as everyone in this room loves to preach, right? There's real property, and there's everything else. Okay. Cash is part of everything else. It's not real property. So there you go. Anything else? Any other questions? How much time did that take? 45 minutes. How's that about perfect? Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's pretty good.